Kim, and welcome to episode 101 of the Emotional Eats podcast. Are you someone who's trying to control everything? Your food, your body, maybe even the people around you? I get it. I've been there and I do it. But here's the truth. Control feels safe, but it actually disconnects us from ourselves and others. In this episode, I'm sharing how control can lead to emotional eating, how it can impact your relationships, and drain your energy. We'll explore how to let go, build trust with yourself, and create true peace in your life. If you're ready to break free and stop controlling everything, this episode is for you. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, please share it with them. Not to be too controlling, but don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Your support means so much to me. And check the show notes for the link to join the Emotional Eats community. Let's get into it. I'm a control freak. And welcome to episode 101 of the Emotional Eats podcast and season 3. This is the start of our new season, and I wanted to get that out of the way. As I'm telling you about how having too much control and hanging on too hard to things can actually affect your emotional eating, but it can also affect your relationships. I didn't want you to feel alone, so I thought I would just put that out there right away. I'm always trying to control things. And if you look back in your past, you'll probably understand why you have felt the need to have control over all kinds of things. If you understand that that need for control really comes from the need and desire to have safety and stability. Because there might have been things in your life that felt super chaotic, or things that happened, whether it was in your home as a child, or whether you've gone through relationships or divorce or loss. So many things feel so out of control. And then let's just add in the eating part of it. Diet culture has told you that you have to be in control. You have to eat a certain number of calories, can't go over, and then you have to exercise because you have to have that mathematical equation that says you're going to burn more than you're going to take in. So control. I wanted to talk about control today because I also find when I'm talking to clients that when they're sharing with me, they're sharing that the relationships that they're having also, they're trying to control either what their spouses are doing, what their friends are doing, what their grown children are doing. And I'm guilty of that. I understand. We're not really staying in our lane when we are having so much control. And on a personal level, I've had to work really hard because my kids are old enough to make decisions, and I know they can make really good decisions. Of course, at 58 years old and having so much more time in life, of course we think we know better, but we really need to let them learn, and we can try to help, but we really need to wait to ask. And I'm learning that. I've learned that a little bit the hard way, but it's nice when you start to let go. I'm going to share with you all the benefits of letting go of control that help you not only with yourself, but relationships, and of course with emotional eating, my favorite topic. But let's talk about first, why do we need to control everything? And I've had to work really hard on this. But again, I just want to say that control is a coping mechanism, just like overeating, just like scrolling on the phone, just like all the things that we might feel like we have to reach for to feel better, pouring that glass of wine, having that cup of coffee. Well, we won't count that because that is my only vice right now. But when we have a need to control, it's a coping mechanism, and that makes us feel safe and stable in our chaotic worlds. We know that there's so much going on in everybody's life, and that helps us feel stable if we can try to control things. Although we know that God's really in control, it's hard to remember that. It's hard to remember we try to control things. And of course, there's certain things we have to control for safety, to prevent injury, to make sure that we're ready to be somewhere, be prepared. Of course, there is the appropriate time to be in control. And then there are times when we may overstep our bounds in our control with our own bodies and in relationships. And so when life feels really unpredictable, if you're working or in your relationships or family dynamics or someone is sick, controlling food and body size, that actually helps create order for us. So when you can make that connection that when we are trying to control ourselves and constantly do everything perfectly and control other people, it creates this order in our lives. And I know I have felt many, many times when things are chaotic, I tend to restrict food more. Like, well, this is something I can control. This is something that I myself, without anybody else, can be in control of. The problem is I'm not, and I let go. And when I over restrict, I tend to binge later in the day. So that over restriction is really not helping me. And when we are trying to control other people, where does that backfire? That can backfire in tension, conflict, or some kind of disconnection. And again, even trying to control our bodies too much, we think we're in control and connected. It's the opposite. When we are over controlling our bodies, we are actually very disconnected. We're not listening in and taking some time to understand what our bodies really want and need. So another reason why I think that we control things a lot is we have this societal pressure to shrink. I think we watch so much online and we've been told for so long, especially women in our 50s, we have been told for so long what society thinks is pretty, what size we should be, what clothes we should be wearing, what makeup we should be wearing, what is acceptable. And I think that need for control actually gives us some kind of worth, makes us feel enough. Instead of feeling worthy and enough on our own, we are tying it to how small we can make our bodies. And I think losing control of food definitely feels like we're losing control of life, because if that is one basic need that we have and we overdo it, we overdo the eating, then we feel like we're out of control in every part of our lives. So it's really interesting. When I feel out of control with my health habits, I do feel like everything else is falling apart. But if everything else is falling apart, I feel like I'm trying to control my health habits and not always able to do it. And so it can feel very sad and I can feel very anxious. And if you feel the same way, then we are going to really talk about what to do about it. I want to give you some tips along the way for you to actually feel more peaceful in the process if you feel like you're trying to control so many things. And I think some of the tolls that it's taking on us are, it of course takes a toll on us when we're trying to control others. Again, I talked about disconnection, conflict, resentment. And it may be both ways, because if someone's not responding to what you want them to do, then you may feel it. It may not just be the other person. I think it also takes away the closeness, the intimacy that we're trying to have with someone. It builds a wall and somebody ends up feeling isolated on one end or the other. And we often will seek comfort in food, because if you're here on the Emotional Needs podcast listening in, there's something that you're doing that is causing you to reach for food and overeat, or find a way to disconnect from your body and not do the things that you need to do to help yourself. But that might be because there's control in other areas. And you're going to be so happy when you stick around and listen to the tips, because it's really just a process. And once you start practicing, you can rewire your brain to let go. And I know that sounds really like a lot. It's hard to just let go. So we're going to talk about that. It takes such a physical toll on you when you are controlling of everything around you. Chronic stress from trying to control everything, wow, that can really increase our cortisol. And that, of course, increasing that cortisol promotes those cravings, the inflammation in your body. And of course, that leads to fat storage. And the lack of rest and presence and peace that you have in your body, it is a constant state of survival mode. And if weight loss is your goal, I don't think that I focus on weight loss, but I know many of you are looking to lose weight. Your body can't lose weight in survival mode. It needs to hang on to what it has to take care of you. And again, that's safety and stability physically, not just the emotional part that I've been talking about. And then the mental and spiritual toll. Controlling life, it drains your energy. It takes away your peace. It takes away your ability to see the good things. I want you to have joy. I want you to have fun and be playful. And when we're in control mode, we are in very serious mode. And I say we, meaning I am way too serious when I'm trying to control everything. I am not fun. I am not playful. I'm not sure Mike wants to be around me when I'm in a controlling mode because I'm just not lighthearted. I just want everything to go perfectly. So let's talk about that. Control also has to do with that need for perfectionism and living up to expectations, but those may not be real expectations. They might be something that's created in your head, your story from your childhood. I also think feeling disconnected from yourself and others. Wow, when we're disconnected, that is when I lean into the sugar. I'm disconnected from my body, myself, my true needs, and people around me. I just want that chocolate. I really do. In fact, when I'm having a really busy week and I'm disconnected and I'm just trying to, really control all the to-do lists and the things in my schedule, I honestly am thinking about driving to the store and what am I going to get to treat myself after dinner tonight. I also used to, as many of you know from the episodes that I've done on it, I don't drink alcohol anymore, but I used to think about that on the way home. I need to stop and grab a bottle of wine. I don't have a bottle of wine at home. And we use these things to numb out and have that discomfort go away. We want to escape our day. So again, the reason why I'm bringing this to you is not just for you to love yourself better and not emotionally eat, but to also not have to escape from your day and find joy and playfulness and love again, especially for yourself. So I believe that this is how controlling leads to emotional eating. When we try to control people, when I say something to Mike in a passive aggressive way, or if he's doing something and I have a helpful way to do it, even though he's a grown man who can cut up an onion all by himself, I might be saying, oh, that knife is better. Is that how much you want to put in there? And it's not just me doing it in the house, but I have to stay in my own lane and I have to focus on myself because I notice that change happens with everyone around me when I am working on myself. But when we control others, even with good intentions, this disconnection happens and I can see him shut down. And I see my kids, I can tell if I have overstepped in my advice, which I try not to do anymore. I'm open to them sharing with me when they want it, but I've been in the past not great with that, and it creates a resentment and a disconnection and shut down. So what does that do to me? That just makes me sad and want to cope, and I again am looking for whatever food is going to make me feel better immediately. We want that happy hit. That our brains and our bodies are so smart. They know if they get that sugar, fat, salt, crunch, chocolate, ice cream, chips, whatever it is, the brain and the body know, ooh, that's going to bring me down for a minute. That's going to make me feel good, just like the glass of wine. And also that distance, when relationships feel distant, we're filling a gap. Because isn't that the most important thing in life is our relationships with people and connection? God wants us to connect, love each other, be with each other, have joy. And when we fill that gap with food because we've created disconnection, then it's sad. We are filling a hole that can never be filled up. It's an emotional hole. It's not hunger. So we also feel guilt after the conflict. Okay, so this is one of my favorite topics because we feel guilt when we emotionally eat. We feel guilt when we, have this conflict. But I don't know if you're like me. I can be stubborn. So I'll have this conflict with someone. And I think deep down I know when it's my fault that I've created the conflict, but I justify it. Well, he did this and he did this. But the reality is I created it and I could have been silent. Conflict, especially with family, leads to guilt, which triggers that need to comfort for food. Because again, what are we looking for? Safety, security. When we eat to comfort ourselves, we feel safe for the moment. We feel stable and secure for the moment because we're not really connected. But true safety and security is within ourselves, our relationship with God, for example, our spirituality, our family. True connection is not with that food. We can love it and enjoy it and have joy with food, but that's not the connection. And emotional eating becomes this quick fix to ease those feelings of failure in that conversation or disconnect. How many times have you said something and you're like, why couldn't I just be quiet for 2 seconds? I am so good at speaking without thinking. That is what I'm working on now, is to slow down, take a pause. Not everything that's up here in my head has to come out here from my mouth. And I have to really be careful with that and know that that's going to create disconnection, which again is going to make me want to eat more. So let's talk about why letting go is so hard and scary. You know, the fear of losing our identity or standing up for ourselves is really there and big, especially in midlife women. I don't know about you, but I was taught, that I had to stand up for myself. Women didn't get the same things that men got. I had to stand up for myself. And I remember my mom saying to me something when she got divorced about being self-sufficient. So I had a little bit of a low level fear of not being self-sufficient. Had to go out there and get the corporate job and had to take care of myself, pay the bills, and also just doing things around the house with the kids. I felt as a parent a lot of times, everybody goes to mom, and mom has to kind of take care of a lot of stuff here. And we are tied to our identities, as the caretaker, the fixer, the mom, the wife, the one that holds it all together. And we don't have to do that, but we play that game and we act like we know all the answers. And I was really guilty of feeling like I didn't know things. I always had this fear of looking dumb and looking like I wasn't academically smart. And so people would ask me things sometimes, and I would, instead of saying I really don't know the answer, I would sometimes try to answer the question instead of just being honest, because I'm sure it was a fear. I'm sure it was a fear of looking like I wasn't smart enough or good enough. And again, where does that come from? That comes from not feeling good enough when you are younger. I think letting go is also scary because it feels like you're losing a piece of yourself. Like somehow if I let go, that I'm losing a piece of Kim. So think about that for you too. What is your fear of letting go? Why is it so hard to let people just be who they are? Are they just going to get one over on you? Are they taking advantage of you? And I think it's all based in fear. Control is fear-based. It's not really necessary, but it's a coping mechanism to cover up our fear. Fear of losing identity, fear of losing control, fear of not being ourselves anymore. And it's also the fear of chaos. There's a belief that if we stop micromanaging our food and relationships or life, that everything's going to fall apart. If I stop tracking my food, then I'm just going to overeat. But again, that's a disconnection with our bodies. We're not really listening, slowing down, having peace, having silence, and listening in. Same with our relationships. We have this belief that if we don't micromanage it, it's going to get out of control and that person is going to take even more advantage of me. And I know that it was really hard. When Mike and I got married, we each had 2 kids. And so going from 2 to 4 kids, where everybody's different and trying to manage that chaos was really challenging. And especially when you parent in a different way. For any of you who have blended a family, you know that you feel like you've just lost complete control, especially when things come up and discipline has to be taken care of, or an ex is getting involved. It's just very scary. We feel like we have to control everything. And actually, those were times when I used wine and food to bring myself down. I really think that true peace, though, comes from trusting that things can unfold with flow without force. But I have to say that's my faith, too. I have to trust that God has this plan and is going to help me through whatever feels so completely chaotic. Because we go through this all the time. We never learn our lesson. There's always going to be moments that feel really chaotic, and we have to lean into the peace that we are given. because I don't remember that. When things are peaceful, I forget about the times that are absolutely chaotic. And then when they show up, I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this? So here are the steps. Let's get to the steps so that you can make peace in your life. And because I think that is really one of the most amazing things when you build that inner peace. The first one is I've talked about so many of these things before, but they're so worth mentioning again. And if you're new to the podcast, first of all, welcome. These are things that I talk about throughout the episodes, and it's amazing when you hear things over and over and over again. You really can decide what things you can implement in your life because you can't do them all at one time, and I understand that. And for those of you, thank you, who've been with me for a while, I appreciate that because you are hearing these and you know that these are the things that I really believe in because I've mentioned them often. And if you have a friend who you talk about being controlling, and I'm not saying to send this to somebody and say, you're so controlling, listen to this episode, because that's controlling, right? What I am saying is if you and a friend have had conversations about wishing that you could let go a little bit more, please share this with this special person who would understand what you're talking about. And then you can have a conversation about it. But I do believe creating a really grounding morning routine is so important. And let me tell you why. Morning is magical. When we wake up, our cortisol's higher. Our body is more at peace. We haven't been hit by the world all day long. We haven't been hit up by other people. We are in a space where we can take advantage of the morning stillness and starting intentionally. You get to do this whatever way brings you peace, whether it's prayer, meditation, journaling, quiet reflection, devotions. And I know for some people, meditation and journaling is challenging, but I'll tell you, if you pick a 5 or 10 minute meditation, morning meditation on YouTube, put your headphones in and just let someone guide you through it. The first few times it might be challenging, but just letting that peace come into you, it's amazing. Any reading that makes you feel really, I do not do my self-development or my self-help books till later. I always do the more peaceful and reading the Bible. And journaling, I know is hard for people. So if you do a meditation first, you do a reading first, then you have something to write down that you might want to look back at later in the day. And I know I will write down things that I learn in my devotion. I will write down how that applies to me in the day because it always hits a nerve. It really does hit a nerve. But practice breathing and doing body scans to connect. And when I say that, breathing in and intentionally feeling the breath coming in, intentionally feeling the breath coming out, and feeling your body, understanding where you are when you're sitting there, feeling what your head and your forehead and your face and your neck and your arms and your legs and your feet on the ground. Feel all the body parts and get connected to your body. And this will also help connect you with your mind. But the thing that I find is I also find that the nervous system is so at play later in the day because the nervous system is so on fire after everything we've experienced that all these things bring it down. But here's my favorite, and you all know this. I love tapping. So I'll do the peaceful meditation. And not all of this happens every day because we have lives. We have to get on with things. I get that. But I do love tapping because there are some days I can't get myself quiet enough to do the meditation. So if you are more interested in tapping, I hope you'll reach out to me because I can do a short tapping session with you on the things that are stressing you out right now. But calming the nervous system is why I have a morning routine. I do that before I do the workout, because then we're really moving the body. We're really shaking things up. And I try to do a little bit of quiet time before coffee because, of course, that's a stimulant. And I love my coffee, and it is going to happen. So I have to just work it in. The second tip that I have for you is taking those intentional pauses during the day. And what I mean by that is, yes, let's say 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, you have this beautiful, wonderful morning routine. In 2 hours, your body's already going to be ramped up by something, whether you've gotten phone calls, text messages, you've talked to people, you've gone to work, you've run into the neighbors outside. So taking a couple minutes every couple hours, and it doesn't have to be long, and no one even has to know you're doing it, to just sit and breathe and put a space put a pause, put a comma in between the thoughts for that last 2 hours and then the next part of your day. So those intentional pauses are so important. They're micro moments. They don't have to be long, but when we do not stop and take a moment, our body can't process throughout the day, and then we have to process everything at night. And what do we do when we're processing emotions at night? Or we haven't processed them. We're getting into the cupboard. I'm reaching for peanut butter and chocolate. You might be reaching for chips or ice cream. Whatever I call it my emotional eating drug of choice, whatever it is, that's what I'm reaching for to calm my nervous system because I haven't taken enough breaks. And by the way, one of those breaks is between getting out of my car from work and walking into the house for the evening. I actually have to have a good work transition, or that also creates an element of me feeling like I have to start controlling everything. I have to control dinner. I have to control what's going on with the dog, what's going on with everyone in the house, control my food because it's most likely I will let go of the food and start eating things that I shouldn't be eating before dinner. I can have a snack. And it's interesting, I try to manage and micromanage not having a snack before dinner. And that again is taking way too much control of my body because my body was saying to me, you just need something small. It doesn't have to be something big. You need a couple almonds. You need a piece of cheese. You need a couple bites of Greek yogurt. You need something because if you don't, it is going to backfire with the food after dinner. So all of these intentional pauses, affirmations, if you have mantras, I know for some people, affirmations are another thing that's hard, but reminding yourself, I am worthy, I am enough, I don't need to control everything. Me just being me is perfect. It's just fine. And when I say perfect, I don't really mean that. I mean in the big sense because perfection is not required. We are all flawed. But when I talk about being perfect, you are perfect just the way you are. You can create, you can improve your body, you can improve yourself, but where you are at this exact moment is amazing. It's perfect. You're enough. So tip number 3 is really active listening in relationships because a lot of times we have an agenda and we're trying to control what's going on in a conversation. And we're not really listening and saying, I hear you to the person on the other side. Or we're going in with a defense. I'm like a lawyer, already going into a conversation, having had the conversation in my head, by the way, already. And I've got my entire defense written out. I am a lawyer for myself going into certain conversations. So instead of trying to control it, taking a breath and knowing that you may be going into this conversation may not be the exact outcome that you want, but just letting it flow as opposed to trying to force it and get what you want. Because when you get disappointed because you're not getting the response you want, then that is when our bodies really start getting bristly. We don't feel safe. So let's say I go, this is such a good example. I'll go up to my husband and I'll say, like, how was your day? How did things go? And he's like, it was fine. And he's not in the mood to talk yet. I take that as a personal problem. And then I'll start feeling bad and I'll start feeling disconnected when the reality might be maybe he just walked in the door. Maybe he didn't have a chance to even change out of his clothes. Maybe he just got off a terrible phone call with his boss in the car. I have to give a little bit more room and let go and not try to control that I want to hear that he had a great day and him ask about my day and everything be perfect. But trying to understand and say something like, oh, well, when you're ready to talk about it, let me know. But this is what I need to do. I need to listen and not try to fix it. Because when we are not listening, we want to be seen and heard. We as women want to be seen and heard, but are we doing the same thing for someone else? So someone that might be close to you might also want to be seen and heard. And if they ask for advice, then we can jump in instead of saying, well, you should have said this, you should have said this, or you need to go do this. I am working on that a lot, not just in my relationship at home, but with my kids, my grown kids. They know what they're doing. And give space for other people to express themselves. And you know what happens? This is the craziest thing. It helps you feel more peaceful There isn't conflict when you're letting someone be themselves. And you'd be amazed at how they do those nicer things on their own, and they reach out and they want to be with you because you are the one that's full of love and light and not criticism all the time. Because again, when we have the conflict, what do we want to do? I want to reach for something sweet. And it's funny because recently I didn't have anything in the house, and my stepson is 20 and he buys his own food. And there are things that I would never touch on a normal basis that he has in there, but I have reached for them in emotional eating moments because if it even has an inkling of sugar in it, I'm going to grab it. So embrace silence and stillness. That's another tip. Tip number 4 is silence can help cultivate for you awareness and clarity, but it can also let another person kind of, understand what they just said. Maybe they need to clarify, or it allows another person to know that you're not just formulating a thought in your head that you're going to say right away, that you actually are hearing what they're saying. Silence is amazing for yourself too. Before you say something, just be silent and it will come to you what you really want to say. And instead of reacting, allow yourself to sit with the discomfort. That's hard. That's probably one of the hardest things, is not reacting. And instead of having that need to control, observe it. When we talk about emotional eating, we talk about being curious, not critical, and being an observer, not while you're eating the food, but when you're on the outside, just be an observer of what was going on, what made me so uncomfortable, why did I need to numb myself out, why did I need to use food to feel better, what was I feeling before this, and where did it come from. But the same thing happens with us reacting to someone. We can react in a flash. Some of you are probably a little more calm than I am, but over the years I've had to really learn to take a pause before I react and give people the room to make their own mistakes. So I know when a girlfriend, talks about something that they're going through, the need to give advice is it's so strong if you've been through it especially, but maybe asking permission. If you would like advice, I will give it to you, but for now, just know that I hear you and I see you, and I'm sorry you're going through it. And it relieves you of the emotional burden of responsibility when you let people go do their own thing. When you are fully involved, you feel responsible. So letting them make their own decision and dealing with the consequences of it. So this sounds like I'm going off topic a little bit with this tip because we've been talking about the emotional ways to not control, mostly with our words. But you taking care of you is the most important thing. And also talking about that morning routine to create that peace. And after you have created that peace, because you're also going to be doing it throughout the day, moving your body in intention and presence. It's so important because our body is meant to be moving, especially walking. And walking is a wonderful way to process emotions. And our body really wants to be in a state of movement. And it's a beautiful thing because so much is happening that we don't even realize. Not only are we processing emotions so that we're not eating more, we're stabilizing blood sugar. We are out in nature. We're getting so many benefits just from moving our bodies. When we're sedentary, we also tend to ruminate. And we have a chat loop. I don't know if any of you have that, but when I'm having conflict with someone, that conversation is looping in my head like it's on a railroad track going around and around and around, and it doesn't stop. When I'm out moving, I come up with better solutions. I'm calmer. I have a better way of dealing. And by the way, I'm sharing these really personal things with you because I don't want you to feel alone if you've been in this situation before. Mindful movement. And of course, I'd love for you to be lifting weights because the more muscle that we build, that takes the focus off of, that's something you actually can control. Going for a walk and lifting weights to have that muscle that is going to help us keep that health as we get older. That's really, really important. And let it be about how your body feels, not about burning calories. And that muscle, by the way, also helps with mental health. Lifting weights really helps a lot of my clients who are struggling with mental health issues. Walking is helping them. When we move our body with presence, I feel like we're connecting we're connecting back. We're connecting our mind and body. Because remember, taking control and creating that conflict is disconnection. Over scrutinizing what goes into your mouth. Now, of course, I want you to be healthy, but when you're tracking and managing calories and macros, you are disconnected. So let's bring that connection back. Here is another thing that I think is so important, because we talk about food and not overeating. And you know that I love you to be able to eat really healthy food, but I don't want you to give up life. I want you to have the birthday cake. I want you to have a little chocolate here and there. I want you to have toast with breakfast. I want you to have things in life that you will see in the control world that you're not supposed to have. Of course, there are food preferences, but there are also food sensitivities. So if things are not good for your belly, just because someone tells you to eat it, please don't do that if you're not feeling good eating it. That's, again, a control thing. But consciously nourish your body throughout the day. When I say consciously nourish, on purpose, put really good food into your body. Because then when you have the occasional chocolate or cookie or chips with a sandwich, it's not a big deal. It is just part of your day. And when you're not controlling so much, then you're not feeling guilt and you're not overeating at the end of the day. And when we ask ourselves, am I hungry? What do I really need? If you have the silence and the space to do that, then you can have a satisfying meal. And then if you are craving a little cookie after that, you've gotten something to stabilize your blood sugar, like the protein and the fiber, all the things that you've heard from the experts on this podcast. And nourish from a place of self-love, not punishment. And don't punish yourself for being controlling either. If that's how you feel like you are, we all are in some way. It's survival. It is to feel that security and that safety. Don't feel bad about it. It's a learning process. We get to start right now doing things a little bit differently. And when I tell you this, it's not just for the people around you. Because, sweet lady, I'm telling you this for you to create joy and peace in your life. I am telling this for you to be able to love yourself, have acceptance for your body, create peace, because the more stillness we have, the more peace and joy we have, the more we can fulfill our purpose. The more you can go out and do things to help other people, the more that you have to give to those things like your family, your grandkids, your job, anything that you want to pour into. And the last thing that I have for a tip today is reflecting on control versus the word surrender. I love the word surrender, and I've used that a couple times in other episodes. Surrendering to me does not mean giving up. It doesn't mean giving up Kim, giving up my identity, giving up my personality. Control takes that away from me. When I'm controlling, I'm not really truly being who I am. I'm not being the fun, goofy, nerdy, by the way, I'm super nerdy and geeky, geeky person that loves to be outside. I love to be without makeup. I love to run and walk and climb. I hold back a lot because I'm trying to have control. And here's a little side story. I used to have such a hard time trying new things. Like, I wanted to go indoor rock climbing with my son, but I was really afraid to go the first time because I thought I'm going to embarrass myself. I have not done a triathlon because I did not think I could do it. Before I did marathons, I never thought I could even be a runner. All the things that I've wanted to learn have been really hard for me because I don't want to embarrass myself. I'm having so much control over myself that just comes out, unfortunately, in other areas like the eating. So here's another example, and you all can hold me to this. I am learning Spanish on Duolingo right now. I wanted to relearn Spanish, and I wanted to go further than what I learned when I was in school. And I'm so afraid to try to talk to someone who speaks Spanish, even though I know they would be compassionate and slow down, because I'm afraid of embarrassing myself. But again, that's having control over something and we're all assuming that somebody else is going to make fun of us or we're going to be embarrassed. But we are not responsible for other people's reactions. We're only responsible for our own. And that's part of letting go and letting go of that control. And I know journaling is hard, but if you have a moment to write down anywhere, where are the things in my life that I really try to control and where can I let go? What are the things that I would like to do that I'm holding back on, that I'd really like to do, but I am afraid of letting go of control? Who are the people that I'm afraid to reach out to and have a coffee date with? Because I'm afraid, like, I like to have the control, like everybody's going to say yes, everybody's going to like me. But where can you let go of that? So write some of these things down and let go, because guess what? This is all fear-based. This is all fear-based. Us feeling like we have to control other people's reactions. We are fearful of what we might feel. But when you get used to just feeling like, okay, everybody gets to do what they want. Some people will like me, some people won't. Then it's a lot easier, and you're not coping in ways like scrolling, drinking, eating the chocolate. So control is a coping mechanism, not a character flaw. Let's go there. I want you to reframe that your need for control came from something where you had to protect yourself. It's not that controlling is bad. You are not bad. It's just like when I say you are not good or bad based on the food you eat. Trust others, trust yourself, and I would love for you to let me know if some of these things show up for you. Leave a comment and let me know, are you trying to control something in your life that you can possibly let go of? And let's hold each other accountable. Don't forget to share this with a friend, subscribe, and also make sure to ask me about the Emotional Needs community, where we get to continue this conversation and you get to actually come in and have a face-to-face coaching call with me. I would love to have you in there. It's a wonderful, wonderful group of women. Thank you so much for being with me today. I really appreciate you listening in. And control, we are all control freaks, but it's okay because it's served you somewhere in the past to make you feel safe. Thank you for being here. Nourish your entire life and give yourself grace today.